Nonprofit organization StopBadware is teaming up with the Interactive Advertising Bureau and technology giants such as Facebook, Twitter, Google, and AOL in an effort to protect users from harmful ads. The initiative is called the Ads Integrity Alliance and is designed to combat ads that deliver malware, points users to spam, or tries to sell them counterfeit goods. StopBadware has worked toward this initiative for some time now, but is hoping to drastically reduce this growing problem with the newly formed alliance. Maxim Weinstein, StopBadware's executive director, is joining us now by way of Skype to talk about the alliance and what it hopes to do. It's great to have you today, Maxim.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Well, first of all, I want to talk about StopBadware and the work that it has done toward eliminating bad ads before we get into the alliance specifically. So what can you tell us about StopBadware?
Sure. Well, StopBadware has been around for 6 years, the first few as a project at Harvard University's Berkman Center for Internet and Society, and then we spun off as a standalone nonprofit organization about 2.5 years ago. And our focus has always been on protecting consumers and other users of the web from harmful software and harmful websites. Bad ads, of course, are a part of that. And in fact, many badware websites are badware because of the fact that they serve up malicious ads that try to install malicious software on people's computers. Right. Our goal with the Alliance is to really focus more attention specifically on the ad side of the world, because up to this point we've focused a bit more on the websites themselves and less on the advertising sector.
Right. Well, yeah, let's get into more this alliance specifically. How does the alliance plan to really fight the bad ads?
Well, there's really a three-pronged strategy that we have in mind. The first is to try to bring industry up to the highest possible standards. You know, a lot of the players, a lot of the members of the alliance as they are now, and other folks in this industry already have a lot of policies in place and have done a lot of work to try to combat bad ads, but there's always opportunities to learn from which practices are working across different players, and for those folks to share that information and try to disseminate the best practices and these industry policy recommendations. The second area is information sharing. Sharing insights about specific trends, specific new attacks, bad actors that are being seen. And the IAB is already doing some great work in that area, and we hope to be able to work with them and leverage the work they're doing along with our work. And then the third part of it is really letting people know, especially folks down in Washington, about, first of all, what the trends are so that, for example, folks like the Federal Trade Commission is in a position to know what the latest threats are and can do some investigation there, but also to let policymakers know that, hey, you know, not only are these threats real and things we're concerned about, but also that industry is doing a lot of work already on its own to tackle these and to show them what we're doing.
I want to get into some of those issues in just a minute. Before that, it's clear that online advertising, that the market is growing and is only going to continue to grow. But how significant is this problem of bad ads? I mean, can you share any statistics with us to help us really understand the dangers that are posed to users?
I'm afraid I don't have great statistics off the top of my head, but what I would say is this: it's a very real threat. It's something that anyone who has spent time online and actually taken the time to look at ads has seen some examples of someone selling some shady goods, you know, or has heard a story of someone clicking on an ad and having something bad happen to them. So it's enough of a threat that we think it's real and it's something that's important to bring people together around. At the same time, we don't want to send the message that this is some, you know, alarming thing and you can never trust an ad. I think by far the majority of ads out there are legitimate and useful, and I think companies are getting only better at ensuring the high quality of advertising on the web. So this really is about saying, how do we do even more to protect consumers and even more to improve the quality?
In a Google blog post, Eric Davis, the company's global public policy manager, said, quote, "The best way to tackle common problems across a highly interconnected web and to move the whole web forward is for the industry to work together, build best practices and systems, and make information sharing simple," end quote. Well, this sounds great, but how do you plan to really get the whole industry on board with this effort?
Sure. Well, obviously, we have a great head start by having some of the biggest players in the industry on board from the start, with Google, Facebook, Twitter, and AOL, as well as the IAB's involvement. So I think we're heading in the right direction there. Beyond that, I think that as we can show that what we're doing is valuable and important, as we develop plans for bringing new members on board, which is something that's one of our top priorities in the first several weeks of the Alliance's work. I think we'll see more members coming on board, getting involved, and as we do that, I think it'll just continue to gain momentum from there.
Well, you mentioned this earlier, policymakers and law enforcement agencies, that they are a part of this initiative, but can you talk a little more about the goal of this particular effort, especially since the issue of regulating really any aspect of the internet has really become quite controversial over the past couple of years?
It certainly has. I think very much that we at StopBadware, and certainly the other members of the Alliance, see that there's a lot of work that can be done by private industry and by collaboration, not only across companies, but also across nonprofit organizations like ours and like other folks that are working to protect consumers. And that any regulation before these groups really have a chance to mobilize and do some further work would probably be a bit premature. I also think a big challenge with regulating this space is it moves and changes so fast, far faster than the typical pace of government.
Of course.
And a lot of it really has to do with with companies finding ways to manage the threats effectively, and that's what we're about.
Well, why do you feel that it is so important that the Ads Integrity Alliance take action now?
Well, I think because of the fact that we have seen growth in individual companies taking action. And so the fact that those companies are probably reaching a point where they have done a lot of what they can do on their own. Mm-hmm. Not everything, and they're continuing to innovate and find new ways, but that, really the next frontier, the next big opportunity is to say, now that companies have innovated on their own, what can we do working together? This really grew up organically from folks like Eric Davis at Google and others talking to each other and saying, hey, maybe it would be helpful for us to do more work in this area collaboratively. And so, I think the time is right for it.
Well, and especially since the the revenue model for the web is essentially advertising. That's the major revenue model.
It is, and one thing that's interesting about this particular problem, more so I think that even than other aspects of malware that we deal with, is the fact that the incentives are aligned really in a positive way, in the sense that obviously it's important for consumers that they be protected from these bad ads, but it's also important for the companies involved in advertising because they make their money when people click on ads, when people find the ads valuable. And if people are concerned that they're going to get malware, that they're going to get a counterfeit good, that they're going to get scammed by clicking on ads, they won't click on them. So it really is in everybody's shared interest to work on this together right now.
Right. On that same note, as you sort of implied, ads in general seem to have a certain stigma attached to them that often turns consumers away. But with the measures that this alliance plans to take, do you think that the consumer perception will change and that they will learn to trust ads?
I hope so. I mean, this really is the holy grail, I think, for the industry and really should be in a sense for consumers too. we all want to be able to use all the great services out there, and we want to be able to use them for free. We don't want to have to pay subscriptions to get on Facebook or to, or to use Google and things like that. So I do think it's important that the ad ecosystem really, really works. And the way it's going to really work is if people say, hey, these ads are valuable. These ads help me. And I know that if I click on an ad, it's going to get me something that I'm interested in, that matches my preferences, and that is safe, which is what we want.
And how quickly do you think that we could begin to see improvements in the ad space?
Well, I think we're seeing improvements every day, but as far as the alliance itself goes, it'll be some months before we get to a point of having having everything up and running. But I think within the first year, we should have some documents out there and some policy recommendations for industry, and I think we'll start seeing improvement from there.
And as these efforts are beginning to roll out, do you have any advice for consumers as far as discerning the harmful ads from the harmless ones?
Well, I think a lot of it really comes down to using some basic sense, the same way you would with a salesman at your door, or an ad in the newspaper or anywhere else, right? It's if someone's selling a genuine NFL jersey, brand new for $15, it probably isn't real.
Yeah.
That's a pretty rare thing to have happen legitimately. So I do think it's some of that. Of course, for the malware side of things, all the usual precautions apply with keeping your computer and software up to date, having current antivirus software, and so on.
All right. Well, Maxim, we'll stay tuned to these developments. Thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Reporting for WebPro News, I'm Abby Johnson.